So I have pulled off to some overlook point that's absolutely stunning. The view down to the beach is incredible. So let's come over here and take a look at this. Hey folks, Chris here. So I have gone all the way from Newport and I'm now in Astoria, Oregon. I had stopped at Tillamook. Tillamook is that little town that is famous for its dairy. Tillamook, like cheese, anytime you see Tillamook cheese or other dairy products in the store, that comes from this little town. So the drive between Newport and Tillamook is kind of incredible. That passage of the Highway 101 really gets into some of the most incredibly lush and green areas that you're ever going to find. I was really astonished. I mean, it's one of those things that I've been to a long time ago, but I had sort of forgotten how verdant and intensely lush and green that area is. I mean, the cows that live in those parts of the country are lucky cows. It was just incredible to drive through all the little valleys and wind in around. I mean, you hardly realize that you're on kind of a quote-unquote freeway. But it's part of the 101 that really goes inland. It's not so much along the coast anymore. I had stopped at a little town along the way called Depoe Bay. And Depoe Bay is just one of those little coastal towns that you travel through. And there are a bunch of these coastal towns. I mean, there are a lot of little hamlets and coastal towns and communities that you pass through. And some of them are a little bit more well-defined, like Depoe Bay was. And you go over this incredible bridge, and there's just this cute little downtown area. Pretty, though. Check out this little marina. How awesome is that? You can walk underneath it. And let's walk underneath here. There is this bay that it sits in. And that bay is pretty well known for its rocky conditions. And there's a seawall right there. And so when the tide is in and a storm is coming in, it's apparently quite a sight to behold as the water and the waves crash on that. So check this out. In memoriam, from this harbor in storm departed Roy Bauer and Jack Chambers, fishermen of the trolling fleet, October 4th, 1936, on a mission of rescue. Wow, very cool. So when I happened to have been there, the tide was out and it was calm, so it wasn't super spectacular, but it still visually was amazing. But the crazy interesting thing is that there was a whale in the bay. So I was sitting there doing some photography and somebody says, "Hey, there's a whale." So I got my Panasonic out and tried to capture it as best I could, and it was just slowly migrating up through the bay. Wow, he's getting close. When I left Tillamook, again, the drive is just incredible. It's just green upon green. I stopped at a little beach called Rockaway Beach. And Rockaway Beach was kind of cool because it was, again, right on the beach. It was the 4th of July, and so they were preparing to send off fireworks. So they had cordoned off a big section of the beach where the fireworks were going to be blown off. And I thought about finding parking. I thought about, could I find a place to sort of camp out and watch them? But it was so busy. It was just packed. I mean, it was just packed. There was so much going on there. So I decided to keep going. But I did go down to the beach for a while. And there's a really sort of picturesque rock collection off in the distance that forms an arch. That was super interesting, but it was kind of fun because there were a lot of people out there, and a lot of people had sort of quintessentially 4th of July outfits on. It was kind of fun, but the beach was beautiful. It was probably the closest thing that I've seen along the Oregon coast to what you would consider something like a Southern California type of beach. And it was a fairly warm day, so just tons of people out there, and it was a lot of fun. One of the other things that I was interested in is there's an old railroad right there that does tours along the Highway 101 and the Oregon coast. And it's this incredible old train that takes people on tours. I got to see that. I just happened to be coming into town when it was bringing a load of tourists in. Check this out. There's an Oregon coastal scenic train right here. And it was stopped there, so fortunately I got to go over and take a look at it. The engine was built in 1912. It's been kept in immaculate running condition. I mean, they're constantly babying it and taking care of it. You can go right up to it, and I was talking to a guy who was working on the engine, and I went inside of one of the cars. I'm gonna walk up here and look. Wow, how incredible is this? Totally just walking on here and taking a picture. That was absolutely just phenomenally cool that I got to do that. Neat bits of history, because that's how people used to travel through the United States, was on trains like this. And this is just a little bit of a vestige of how things used to be, and I find that fascinating. So I kept going, and again, winding through area after area, and I made a mistake. I totally made a goof. The Highway 101 doesn't just continue in a seamless way. You get into this little small town just a little ways from Rockaway Bay, and you have to follow the signs because it goes off at a 90-degree angle. And I was just paying attention to the cute little town and the winding roads and the scenery, and I missed it. And I just kept going straight, and I went about 10 or 12 miles too far through this just country road. I was really glad that I had had this front suspension work done, because the road quality wasn't very good. It was really bumpy and twisty and wavy, and I finally realized that I had made a mistake and I had to backtrack. Well, I totally goofed and I missed an important turnoff, so I just took a little drive into the countryside. So I believe this is the turnoff. So I backtracked and I got back on the 101, and it quickly turned into some of the most extravagantly interesting parts of the Highway 101. You're going through these intense canopies of forests. And then you suddenly are on the edge of a rock face. I actually stopped at 2 different overlooks. 2 of these scenic overlooks had very large open parking lots that I could see from a distance, and I just pulled off and got some photography. And it turns out that these 2 happen to have some of the most incredible views of very iconic Oregon coast. One of them was near Cannon Beach, the famous Cannon Beach. I could see from a distance that there were people down there, people walking their dogs and people just walking amongst them, and they were like ants in this gigantic vista of beach and rocks and just incredible scenery. Absolutely stunning. It was frustrating because just the 60 miles between Tillamook and Astoria is some of the most incredible of the scenery, and I only had time for a limited number of stops. So it's really incredible. I'm in Astoria now, and I've done a bit of exploring, and this is a neat town. So I've got some great stuff coming about Astoria. Anyway, thanks for watching.